So, would you ever say this to a vaccinated normie? So this all comes about because the other day I was having a conversation with a person who I think I would put into this category. Maybe they're slowly beginning to realise that the world isn't quite what they always thought it was. But anyway, yeah, they definitely took part in a medical experiment. And I was talking to this guy, and there was another bloke who we both know who was full on. He didn't just take part in the experiment, he was also full on for biomedical fascism. And I actually fell out with him over that because he thought it was acceptable for people to have their basic human rights removed from them by society, aka the government, if they refuse to take part in a medical experiment. So he's a supporter of biomedical fascism. Anyway, the thing that I'm getting at here is that if you ask people who are on, I don't know, loads of medications, or maybe they've got a problem with alcohol, or maybe they've got a problem with junk food, you know, being addicted to it, maybe they don't do any exercise. If you ask these people about their own health, of course, they're going to say, oh, I'm fine. But that actually doesn't mean that they are fine. Now, at this point, I want to kind of be clear about one thing, which is I don't wish any ill will on this guy at all, you know. In fact, nothing would please me more to hear that he's kind of changed his life around, and he's eating better, he's doing exercise, and he stopped relying on the NHS. He's stopped outsourcing his health to the NHS. But I do think that with a lot of these people, their perception is not the same as reality with regard to their own health. And I think people often put up with a lot of things and health problems that they wrongly attribute to aging, when it's really down to other things that are within their control, like especially what things you know, go inside their body and through them. So when they say, oh, like, I'm healthy or he's healthy, by whose standards, and is that really true? So that's kind of the first issue. Second issue is, let's call this a hypothetical for the sake of censorship, yeah? The fact that things are still being censored should tell you something, actually, if you've got an ounce of critical thinking. But anyway, look, the other day I went to watch a football match, a third division football match in Porry, and one of the opposition players collapsed in the warm-up, game cancelled. There's been a huge increase in medical emergencies amongst fit and healthy athletes, and this has all happened since 2021. Okay, I know that there was an odd, I don't know, prior to that in 50 years, I think I knew two, Patrice Mwamba and somebody else, but we're now having hundreds of cardiac instances every single year. So we had like 2 in about 50 years, and then since then we've been having like 50 a month. So let's call this a hypothetical. Let's imagine, so going back to this, let's call it a hypothetical situation. If you thought that there were too many people on the planet, you know, the earth was overpopulated, and there needs to be a reduction in the number of people to achieve sustainable development, let's call it, you'd have to trick people, wouldn't you, really, into depopulating themselves. So so you'd need to find a way of people choosing to poison themselves, let's say. Now the thing is you wouldn't want your kind of scheme to be discovered straight away. So the poison you'd select would kill people at different times after they consume the poison. You know, so some of the deaths might be very soon after they had the poison. Others might take months, years. So what we're looking at now, it's we're in 2025. The experiment started in 21, so it's still only 4 years, and there has been a big increase in the number of deaths. I'm also seeing a huge number in people who have got mobility issues. Never saw that before. So we still only know what the short run and medium term effects are of the poison, because not enough time has elapsed yet. So the kind of people who took part in the experiment who think that they've got away with it, well, I hope they have got away with it, but I think it's a little bit premature to start celebrating, because we only really know what the short and medium term effects are. We don't really know what the long term effects are. And as I say, if you were designing a poison to kill and maim, you probably want the big cull to come slightly later so that you would be less likely to be discovered. You know, people would be less likely to attribute cause with effect. So that then is my first question, is do you think you've got away with it? Is your health really the same? Maybe another, you know, maybe you're attributing problems that have emerged since you took part in the experiment with aging. Maybe you're wrong to attribute the cause to aging. Maybe it's something else. You know, you could have had an operation even, and then, you know, of course, you know, if you were a husband that committed adultery, would you tell your wife? The same would apply to doctors and nurses that were complicit in the crime against humanity, which was the medical experiment and the biomedical fascism. So yeah, do you think you got away with it? Don't celebrate too early. Second question to ask these people is, what benefit do you think you gained from taking part in the medical experiment over me, who didn't? Because the thing is, you see, is that we've both got one thing in common, in that it's now 2025 and we survived the deadly cough and sniffle, didn't we? The 2020 Chinese coof. We both survived it, right? So, but I didn't take part in the experiment. So we're both here now. You took part, I didn't. My question to you is, what additional benefit do you think you gained from taking part in the experiment over me, who didn't? So that's the second question. What are we on now? Question 3. Here it is. If you had your time again, would you take it? Would you take part in another medical experiment? So tell me, would you go along with it again? So the last thing then is, I'm picking this up from what Sanity for Sweden said. Great channel, by the way. I'll put a link in that to his channel, Stefan from Sweden, in the description. So yeah, you know, to be honest, there will be many of the people who took part in the experiment who are worried, and my personal feeling to that is I don't wish any ill will on them at all, but Stefan's a bit of a joker, very dry sense of humour. And yeah, his response would be, when he talks to normies who took part in the experiment, he uses irony. Yeah, so he'll basically say to them, "Oh, you shouldn't be worried. You know, at least, you know, you shouldn't be worried about taking part. At least you didn't get, you know, what's it? You know, the thing." Knowing, of course, that they all got it, even though they took the miracle cure. And then his other line is, but you know, you shouldn't worry about the side effects of the juice, you know, like blindness or deafness, or, you know, again, and what you have to think about is, it's not just the experiment of 2021. It's probably, like, I know somebody who was put in a wheelchair by another one of them. I think it was for the flu. That was always funny as well, you know, when I was at school. What the school used to pay for flu, and then immediately after the other people got, my colleagues got, all my free periods would go, because they'd all be off sick with the, you've guessed it, the flu. But you know, he sort of says stuff like, oh yeah, you know, but this is Stefan, you shouldn't worry about it, because I'm sure you did your research about what was in there before you took it, which of course none of them did. Anyway, that's all I want to say today, so God bless, including those that took part. Don't wish any ill will on you. I don't wish any ill will on you. And that's all I want to say today, so God bless.